Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the America is Burning podcast. This evening, I'm going to do something a little bit different than I normally would. Most nights when I come in here to record, I've got notes, I've got statistics, I've got things to talk about that I feel are important or maybe overlooked. Today, I'm going to do something just a little bit different. CNN anchor Chris Cuomo, brother of New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, just came out today and said that in order for us to achieve gun control or meaningful legislation on police reform, things of that nature, that white kids were going to have to die. His words, not mine. I can't even begin to express how angry and how dejected I am. What a lot of people don't know about me is I actually have a degree in journalism. I started to pursue a career in journalism and then decided that with the extreme partisanship, I wasn't going to have a meaningful impact the way I had wanted. And people like Chris Cuomo are exactly the reason why I'm glad I made that change in life, that I didn't pursue journalism. Because, for lack of a better term, his take is bullshit. So, Chris Cuomo, apologist for all things Democrat, has said that in order for us to have any control over guns, in order to stop assault rifles and get meaningful gun reform and background checks and all of these insane Second Amendment infringements, in order to get any type of meaningful legislation, that white children would have to die, as if children of color, for lack of a better term, okay, look, Hispanic children, black children, Asian children, as if any blood is not important. And that take is asinine. And I'm annoyed that we even have to talk about it, but like all things like this, it will simply disappear if we don't discuss it. It'll get swept under a rug and people will pretend it was never said. See, what Chris Cuomo isn't talking about is that just a few short months ago, Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina had presented meaningful reform for police. And Democrats blocked that bill. So here's Senator Tim Scott, a person of color. He checks your identitarian politic list. He's proposing a change to policing. The same thing that you Democrats said you wanted. He's doing what you said you wanted. And you blocked it. You blocked it. And then you virtue signal and come out and say that it doesn't matter. No. Republicans don't care about controlling the police. They don't care about taking care of anyone other than themselves. While you have Democrat members of the House of Representatives going out and encouraging people to commit acts of violence, as Maxine Waters did today, representative from the 43rd District in California. She came out and told people that if you don't get the verdict you want, which in her eyes was murder one, a charge which Derek Chauvin is not accused of, if you don't get murder one, you should be more confrontational. saying that to people who have already set numerous buildings on fire, caused billions of dollars of damage, and have been directly or indirectly responsible for little over 30 deaths in the United States in less than a year, tell them to be more confrontational. But Donald Trump incited violence when he said, peacefully and patriotically, go let your voice be heard. So, Mr. Cuomo, white children have to die in order for us to care. Tell me when we haven't cared, Chris. See, I seem to recall that when George Floyd was killed, it was fairly bipartisan across the board to say, wow, that was awful. That video was terrible. And if he indeed did, kneel on his neck and cause his death, then that is a tragedy and he should be punished. Now, the trial has brought to light several other things, and I'm not going to get into the trial at this point. I'm sure every other podcaster out there has gone, ad nauseum on it, and I'm not going to begin to start talking about it now. But there was universal outrage for this. But we didn't care. See, the conservative viewpoint has always been and will continue to be, let's wait for all the evidence and let's talk about the factors that contributed. Because very rarely, in fact, not 0%, but real close to 0% of the time, where there are no other contributing factors. Police officers don't get out of their car and go, oh, look, right there is a child of color. Let me go shoot him. That doesn't happen. No. What happens is often there's a crime committed. They go to make an arrest, someone resists, and then things escalate, and sometimes they get taken too far. Jacob Blake, a young black man, raped a woman, sexually assaulted her, attempted to abduct her children, and when the police officer went to save this woman from her abusive ex, he reached for a knife under the floor mat of his vehicle, or her vehicle that he was stealing, excuse me, and police shot him. He's no saint. But Kamala Harris will go visit him and talk about what a hero he is, right? How bad police are. George Floyd had a plethora of drugs in his system. He had just passed a counterfeit bill. He resisted violently police. But he was a saint. Now, see, this is your narrative, CNN. And Project Veritas just got you on camera, a member of your staff saying that you're propaganda, that you push an agenda, and that you purposely select stories to tell a narrative that helps Black Lives Matter with their message. You are what Trump called you. You are fake news, and you're proud of it behind closed doors. But what James O'Keefe and Project Veritas did is they brought it to light. They told you exactly who you are. They held the mirror up to you and showed that image to the world, and that makes you angry. And you say outrageous things like white children need to die. Mr. Cuomo, no one needs to die. No one. Police do need reform. I think conservatives would agree with you on that. What we disagree on is how that reform can happen. You think the idea is to get rid of the police. You think some type of Wild West scenario would help, but only if you take the guns first, right? Take all the guns away, because bad men will hand their guns over too. That's not how criminals work. No, a Wild West scenario is not going to be ideal for anyone except the criminal element. Now, if you want to have martial law, but everyone's armed, there's an argument to be had. I still think it's a stupid idea, but at least that is an argument worth having. Removing the police and removing the ability of common citizens to protect themselves with firearms is reckless and ridiculous. Mr. Cuomo, you often have your head shoved up a body cavity that I would rather not mention on the video, but this take is far beyond even some of the dumbest statements you've ever made. No one needs to die to prove a point. Do you know what a common sense gun law would be? It's real easy. It's actually already written down. Shall not be infringed. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. See, when victims can protect themselves, the bullies often stay away. Something my own father taught me when I was young. When somebody picks on you, when they're bullying you, if you stand up to them, when you stop being an easy target, they leave you alone. Mr. Cuomo, no one needs to be hurt in order to make a point. No. See, the conservative opinion is that for police to reform, police need more funding, more training. They need to learn hand-to-hand combat so that they don't go instinctively to moves that could be harmful or dangerous in the long run. But when you put these guys out there, men and women of law enforcement out there with inadequate training, what you're really doing is saying you have a weapon to go to in the event of an emergency, but oh yeah, everything's going to be an emergency because you don't have any training to do anything other than talk to someone. You don't know how to safely restrain someone without putting them in a dangerous hole that we're going to constantly critique you for. Give these guys a chance to protect themselves. They have a dangerous job. Just the other day, a police officer, and I apologize, I forget where this was, but a police officer was shot during a routine traffic stop. Luckily, the police officer was not mortally wounded. He was okay, and he actually ended up actually firing and I believe killing the suspect. But that was a routine traffic stop. That should have been a ticket, maybe a warning. That would have been the end of the day. The problem isn't the gun. I'm still waiting for the day when a gun jumps out of a locked, secure gun safe and starts randomly firing into a crowd of people. It's not a gun problem. It's a people problem. And while there are untold evils walking around on the streets free, kind of like your brother, Chris, who have openly admitted to killing, 16,000 people? This is the route you want to take. You want to say that people need to die to prove your point. Look at the statistics worldwide, Chris. It's not the guns. Do guns make the ends easier? Probably. But would it really and truly stop anyone if they really have something in mind? No. Stop going after the guns. The guns are a symptom. You need to treat the real problem. The real problem are the people. Adam Toledo in the city of Chicago didn't need to die. But what did he do? He got involved with people he shouldn't have got involved with. And when he encountered police, he ran. And what the media won't show you is that Adam Toledo was armed. And he tossed the weapon just a couple split seconds before that officer fired on him. Is that to say that everything that the officer did was justified? I don't know enough to make that distinction. But painting this 13-year-old kid as a saint is wrong. He was no saint. He was a kid that got mixed up in the wrong stuff. It happens every day. But nowhere does anyone seem to be blaming the people who put the gun in his hand. No. Instead, you blame the gun, as if it sought him out itself. The gun isn't the evil. The evil lies in the heart of man, and always will. And Chris, you should know that very well, because while thousands of people were dying, and while our civil liberties were being taken away from us, you held up a giant Q-tip and joked around with your meathead brother. You and your entire network are a disgrace. Maxine Waters and her race baiting is a disgrace. We don't have a problem talking about reform. But we have a problem when we have the problem, it is coming up with a solution. And when someone like Tim Scott comes up with an idea, you won't even hear him out. You won't listen. You don't oppose amendments. He offered you amendments and Democrats turned it down. You don't want a solution. You want to keep talking about the problem because the problem equals votes for you. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize that I don't have more statistics and more factual arguments, but there are just times where I feel the need to share feelings. And I've become increasingly annoyed with the rhetoric, particularly coming from the left. When former President Trump said to peacefully and patriotically assemble and let your voices be heard on January the 6th, it was an insurrection, right? He incited violence, he caused riots, and caused the death of countless people. But people like Maxine Waters can tell people to be confrontational. More than once, by the way, in 2018, when she told people to get in the face of people at restaurants and gas stations and tell them they're not welcome. And then you have people like Nancy Pelosi who defend Waters and say she was talking about it in the civil rights sense of the term, confrontation. She wasn't. Right after she said those words, people executed a drive-by shooting. Luckily, as most Democrats have, they had terrible aim when they went after the National Guard members, and they were just superficial injuries. But she won't be brought with any charges. She won't be impeached. She won't have her committees taken from her. She won't be censured. She won't be expelled from Congress. She won't even get a slap on the hand. People will just say, it was just a speech because she's so passionate about civil rights. Tell me what reason Maxine Waters has to be in Minnesota in the first place. She is a congressional representative from California, different part of the country. Those are not her constituents. Why couldn't Ilhan Omar be there? Why couldn't another member of their congressional horde be there? Maxine Waters doesn't belong in Minnesota at a protest. Check that. A riot. No, she was there to pander and to race bait, to virtue signal to the left to say, look at me, keep doing what you're doing, and drive that knife a little deeper into the heart of America as they push to take away our means of defense. I go back to what Dave Chappelle said. The First Amendment is the first for a reason. The second is there in case the first one doesn't work out. The first one is not working out. That second one is becoming more and more important. And while we're at it, Joe Biden telling us that no amendment is absolute. Where's Maxine Waters on that? Because I'm pretty sure that there is a constitutional amendment that ended slavery. So, Mr. Biden, are you saying that slavery is on the table? You said nothing's absolute. So, is it possible that we can remove the amendment that abolished the practice of slavery? How about women's right to vote? You're all about voting rights. Is that one up for debate? That one's not absolute either. We can take that away. Or do you just mean the ones that get between you and your agenda? Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the right to bear arms, the right to due process, the protections against illegal search and seizure. Those are the ones that you want to get rid of because they're roadblocks. I encourage you to check out a video by J.P. Sears where he talks about the incredible number of times that people have tried to take guns away from their citizens. J.P. Sears is a wonderful comedian. I love his work. And he was talking about an ex-military, an ex-member of the military's video about gun control. And I've not seen the original video, but I've seen the statistics and the numbers and I fact-checked the numbers that JP shared in the video, and they're accurate. It's been tried. Gun confiscation has been tried. All over the world, and every time it was a totalitarian regime, and it resulted in the deaths of thousands upon thousands of people. What do you think is going to happen this time? Don't let them take your rights. Stand up, speak up, and stop being a sheep. Peacefully, mind you, see, Maxine, this is how you do it. Peacefully confront your members of Congress and say, if you take my rights, you'll never get my vote. You will never get my vote. I'm going to wrap it up this evening by just saying that the rhetoric that we've been hearing from the left, people like Chris Cuomo, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's bigotry, it's racism, it's race baiting, it's awful and evil in every sense of the word. And I don't use the word evil lightly. If you were to just put someone else's head on Chris Cuomo's body and repeat those words, tell me what the backlash would have been. If that had been Donald Trump who said those same words, if that had been Ted Cruz, if that had been Jim Jordan, if that had been Ron DeSantis, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who had said those words that change won't happen unless somebody else dies. Tell me what the response would have been. Thank you for joining me on the America's Burning podcast today. Please like, share, subscribe. The best thing you can do is just share this video with one friend. I appreciate the few of you I reach, and I try to expand my reach with every video. And if there's anything that you'd like to see in future videos, don't hesitate to comment. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. And remember that America is burning. Don't fan the flames.